It is time for Streetwise with former chief of the New York City Sheriff's Department, former chief of the Seagate Police Department, retired New York City detective, Time Warner Public Access Media Award, Joe Franklin Super Excellence in Broadcasting Memory Lane Award, New York Veteran Police Association Streetwise Productions, host of Streetwise, Mr. Lou Telano.
Okay, I'm on. Okay, thank you guys. Little technical problems here because me and my guest we're trying to get used to this new world, the 21st century, I should say. Anyway, I'm proud and honored to have my guest on. You've seen him all over the place. Before I introduce him, and you probably already know him, I just want to say a couple of weeks ago I had Robert Woodson Sr. on. Robert Woodson is the founder of Woodson Center and 1776 Project, which is in Washington, D.C., and he said something interesting because he's an African American. He's was past tense, like my guest and like myself, former Democrats. And he was saying for many years, the African American community has been bamboozled, conned, hoodwinked by the Democratic Party. My guest seems to have found the light, so to speak. So it's my guest is a civil rights attorney, over 30 years. Again, TV contributor. He's more on than he ever was before. He was controversial, but he's still controversial, and I would think in a better sense. He's also a radio talk show host. A couple of great books. One of the books is The Things Your Boss Won't Tell You. Many of us are familiar with that in life. And The Right at Your Workplace. That connects with what he does for a living. He's a civil rights attorney. My honor and pleasure to introduce Leo Terrell. Leo, you got me? We got each other, I hope?
Lou, I can hear you. I can hear you very well. And I just had to hold my phone, but this is fine.
Oh, okay, good. Let me start, folks. Again, I'm just going to reintroduce Leo Terrell, civil rights attorney, over 30 years, TV contributor. He's all over Fox and all these other stations. He's an author, radio talk show host, KABCAM 790. I said that fast because I got so much to talk about with Leo Terrell. KABCAM 790. That's in California. His books are The Things Your Boss Won't Tell You. You're right at the workplace. Again, I got to repeat this, that Bob Woodson, who was my guest a couple of weeks ago, Leo, African-American, and many like you, he's pretty much well-known, founder of the Woodson Center and the head of the 1776 Project, had said as former Democrat like you were, I think you still are, and I was, past tense, and I'm just quoting him. He said, the Democratic Party is bamboozling, conning, hoodwinking the African-American community. Your thoughts on that, Leo Terrell?
Well, that might be an understatement. They're pandering too. One of the reasons why I left the Democratic Party is because the Democratic Party has lost its focus on law and order. They've been hijacked by the Black Lives Movement. And now the Democratic Party stands for nothing, does not stand for law and order. It's basically been taken over by extremist groups, and I cannot be part of that. Wow. And when I hear the Democratic Party and Black Lives talk about defunding the police, they lost me. Why? I have family member in law enforcement. I think you got to get rid of bad officers, but 99% of the officers are great.
Do you think that the Black Lives Matter is... we're having all these issues with riots and demonstrations. They're using this terrible incident we all do with George Floyd. Bad cop, like you said, rotten apple, like you said. But he's been locked up, and he's locked up for homicide. I don't know how many times we could give him the electric chair. So I don't know. We keep beating it, and I sort of see what you're saying, because I think Black Lives Matter is using this for political reasons, and somehow it affects Donald Trump. Your thoughts on that, Leo Terrell?
Lou, I agree with you 100%. I want to be very clear as a civil rights attorney, as a Black American. Black Lives Matter is disingenuous. They don't care about all Black lives. They don't care about black police officers who are killed in the line of duty. They don't care about the black-on-black crime in Chicago, in Washington, in New York, in L.A. Black Lives Matter is nothing more, and I give them credit, they do a great job in social media and social messaging, but they have taken over the Democratic Party. They're using the George Floyd death, as you correctly stated. Those officers are going to see justice in a court of law, but Black Lives Matter is manipulating the Democratic Party, and I'm not going to be part of Black Lives. I do not believe in the Black Lives organization. I want every one of your listeners to understand that. I distance myself from that organization. It does not represent what I stand for as a civil rights attorney.
Right. You know, when Black Lives Matter was painted on Fifth Avenue in front of Trump Towers with Al Sharpton and Mayor de Blasio, while they're painting Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Towers, the night before, a 6-year-old was shot in Brooklyn. After a 6-year-old black child was shot, I think in some other state, probably Chicago, it was an 8-year-old, and they're more concerned about painting the streets Black Lives Matter. And like you touched on a moment ago, they, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like they're concerned with Black lives at all. They're more focused on the movement, I think.
You're 100% correct. Let me tell you what's going on. Black Lives Matter is taking a page out of the Al Sharpton playbook, and they're shakedown orders. They have basically convinced corporations and people to kowtow to them, to give them money. And like, I want to be clear, when there is a black police officer who's died, you don't see Al Sharpton or Black Lives Matter protesting. When you see black-on-black crime, you don't see Black lives involved. They're only concerned that they can make a profit on a death of a black person, and they are hoping and praying as a white cop. It's ridiculous and disingenuous. And I would have, and my goal is to make sure that Donald Trump, and I hope everyone knows I'm supporting Donald Trump, first time ever I'm supporting a Republican, and the Joe Biden and the Black Lives, they cannot take over the White House.
Now, aside from that, I mean, how can anybody vote for Joe Biden? I mean, it's just mind-boggling. The guy doesn't know where he is, what he's doing. He's lost in the wilderness, and yet somehow the polls indicate, I don't know where they're getting these polls from, maybe the North Pole or South Pole, stating that, that he's ahead of Donald Trump again, which is try and figure that out. But the deeper thing is that you mentioned police officers before, and I was a former police officer right here in the city of New York. I sent you something. I don't know if they could bring it up and to you, and I just wanted to explain it to you. I was privileged to receive the Medal of Honor on the steps of City Hall with a black police officer. We were part of a 4-man team that made a raid. Right, I'm going back to the 70s, and I was. You can see by the shield, I was still a police officer. I was not a detective. We made a raid. Warren Forward, I'll always mention his name, who was standing with me in front of the steps of City Hall. We were both presented with the Medal of Honor. He was shot. He was shot by a drug dealer. We raided an apartment. We couldn't shoot back, as people think we're going to out to just kill all black people. There was 3 guys in there, 3 males, and there were 3 children. So you could see the predicament that we couldn't shoot back.
Yes. So
to make a long story short, I was able to disarm the shooter. Anyway, he wound up in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. There were no shots fired from the police. My point is that it's a little heavy in that. Warren Forward died 9 months later, the police officer, black police officer, because the lead poisoning that went through his system and killed him. When we were promoted to detective, just before he passed away, we had a sign on the wall in our squad room that said, all police officers are blue and all police officers bleed red. What happened to that? I don't know how that got lost. I can't believe what they're talking about and how there's systematic hunting and killing of black people.
Let me jump on this, because there is a myth that Black Lives and the Democrats and Al Sharpton play. They claim that there is systemic discrimination in police department. That is impossible. Lou, this is not 1955. We don't have the German Shepherds and Bull Connor in Alabama. You got these cities being run by people of color.
Correct.
You got police department with black, white, yellow, and brown. That is a myth. That is a race-baiting strategy by the Democrats and Black Lives Matter to get people divided against the police. And what I find disingenuous is all that crime going on in Chicago. You got black people running the city. You got black people in the police department, and yet you got Black Lives Matter and Al Sharpton looking the other way because it doesn't fit their narrative, and that's the problem.
What's their gain by doing that?
What's
the gain of their narrative, Leo?
Two things: they want power, and they want people to think emotionally and not logically. I'm thinking logically. I'm saying, hey, you're lying to us. You're trying to play my feelings against the establishment, against the institutions. That's why they're asking people to tear down statues and monuments.
Right.
They're trying to appeal to people's emotions and not their logic. My goal is to tell people, think before you feel. You got to think what's going on. They're playing you, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get Trump out of office. And let me be clear, I'm going long-winded, but Trump has done more for people of color,
yes,
black folks. He has funded historical black colleges. He has lowered the unemployment rate for all minorities. He signed an executive order on police reform. The guy is working. He's done more than what Obama and Biden did. And let's not forget, during the Obama administration, that's when black lives came up because of the Ferguson matter. It's crazy.
You know, prison reform was not done during Bush, and also besides Obama, Bush wasn't done. It was done through Donald Trump. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I don't. But you know what? You know what's sad? They are willing. They, meaning the people that we're talking about. I want to throw Antifa in there because they're connected to this also. Willing to sacrifice young kids, innocent children, for their narrative, and
yes,
for the end results was to get Donald Trump. So these are evil people. I have to say that.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Let me tell you right now. All these protests, Lou, that's going on in Portland and Seattle, that's not for George Floyd. That's not for all black lives. This is for the sole purpose of trying to drive Donald Trump out of office. And let me tell you right now, you mentioned Joe Biden. Joe Biden is an empty suit. He is being run by the extreme left, by the socialists. That guy would be the most ineffective president ever if he gets elected. That's why he won't come out of the basement.
You know, do you think they're focusing on the vice president because that's one of the theories that the vice president will be the next president if somehow Biden walks out of the basement, he gets lost in the street somewhere, and they can't find him, so they're looking at the vice president as the potential vice president as the potential president.
Well, I think that's the goal because Biden, in my opinion, I question his mental and physical capabilities. But I tell you right now, he's picking from a very poor list of candidates.
Right.
They're talking about Karen Bass. She's a Fidel Castro sympathizer.
All right.
She's a Castro sympathizer.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris, if you listen to Kamala Harris, she called Joe Biden a racist. You know, it's funny how they always call Donald Trump a racist. Well, you got a Democrat senator from California calling the nominee a racist. My point is this. None of the candidates that are being considered by Biden, to me, are qualified to occupy the White House or the Oval Office. And more importantly, I think Joe Biden did a disservice. He's using race as a factor to pick a vice president. Let's try to live in a colorblind society.
Right. Well, I think he's backed against the wall. In his mind, he will not get the African-American vote if not only a black vice president, a black female. Black female, so it'll be like a double header in their mind. In their mind,
but people don't understand, Lou. Over 1.2 million black Americans voted for Donald Trump. So I've got news for you. This black Democrat is voting for Donald Trump, and I guarantee you, we get the message out for the next 90 days. There's going to be a lot of people leaving the Democratic Party.
Well, we see that now.
Yes.
So, are you concerned about anything? Are you concerned about some kind of fraud, especially with the mailing votes that Trump seems to be concerned about? We know that, because he talks about it. Do you feel that You see, two things that I worry about in this upcoming election. Number one, the fraud, the fixing the votes. And number two, hurt Donald Trump. I don't want to get, people are a little nervous, but that's the only way they can get rid of Donald Trump is by fixing the votes and getting him out of the way. And I'm knocking on wood. So that's my concern, my personal concern.
My biggest concern is this. I think the Democrats, they know for a fact, these polls, Lou, I don't believe them because that's what they thought 4 years ago. They thought Hillary was going to be in the White House.
I know.
I think they are worried because there is a very large silent majority who will not go out and beat their chest, say, I'm voting for Donald Trump. They'll do their noise making in the ballot box. I think Donald Trump has more support than what the public knows because a lot of Donald Trump supporters are quiet, but they will cast their vote for him.
I was at the election night at the in New York at the hotel when all the voting amount of people that were voting, and they had Hillary ahead when she was never ahead in a lot of states, and where they were even, they had Hillary ahead. And it was a fight with the audience, and I say physical fight that brings security in because the press, Donald Trump hit on the head when he gave them his term, fake news. I seen it that night, election night, because we got our cell phones, the people in the audience, and we see like Virginia as an example. Trump is ahead, like they said Hillary was ahead on CNN, MSNBC. So that's my concern. But how is he going to win when if the deck is stacked, Leo? Even though you and I feel that the majority will vote for Donald Trump.
I'll tell you right now, Lou, it boils down to about 5 critical states, those battleground states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Florida. Those are the 5 states, Lou, that's going to determine who's going to be president.
Wow.
If I'm Donald Trump, I concentrate on getting the biggest turnout there. And like I said again, you get the minority vote. He doesn't need 50% of the minority vote. All he needs is to go from 8% to like 12 or 13%. Wow. So what I'm saying is Donald Trump has the charisma, and the people who support Donald Trump, they're energized. The Joe Biden people, they're voting only for him because those are the ones who don't want Trump. That's not a good reason. People have a reason to vote for Donald Trump. Like myself, I'm working the next 90 days, 24/7, to get that man reelected.
Interesting. That's what I'm trying to do on the station. I'm trying to have guests like you, Leo, to show and be realistic, because I have close friends in Florida who are actually, that I was brought up with from New York's Lower East Side, who still think FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Harry Truman are still alive. So what they do is they don't care who the candidate is. They just, you're familiar with, and they just go Democrat. I don't know how to sway them. They tell you, if I say to them, why are you voting for Donald Trump? You don't get a straight answer. I'll get an answer like, every time he opens his mouth, he lies. But they can't give you one lie.
Yes.
They cannot give you one lie. So I have them boxed in. So, the upside to that is I found some of them are starting to sort of lean toward my corner. I should say our corner.
Well, I'll tell you, Lou, what's amazing is I got 30 years on the left, 30 years as a Democrat, and I am shocking people. I'm shocking people by saying, I'm not drinking the Democratic Kool-Aid. I have made a national impact. And what people are saying, oh, wait a minute, I better think twice now, because Leo Terrell, he's been this big liberal for 30 years. And now that I'm singing a different song and giving reasons why, people are listening. And the Democrats have to be nervous, because if I go to the right, others are going to go to the right as well. And we got 90 days to enlarge that group.
Leo, I don't know where I know. Actually, you seen the light. Let me put it that way. And you made a quick change. But what's interesting, and I'm sure Donald Trump agrees with it, you're going to be a great asset. You are a great asset, because from a couple of years ago, for me yelling at you on television, right? to standing up clapping. I'm standing up clapping in my living room when I used to just look at this son of a bitch, right?
Lou, I'm telling you, what you just said has been echoed by maybe 200,000 people. I used to hate you, Leo. I couldn't stand. Now I love you. I can't believe it. And I'm telling you, it's resonating across the entire country. I know it. I appreciate it. And I am continuing the battle to get Donald Trump reelected.
Well, you're going to be one of the assets. I have to tell you that from where I sit. You're going to be one. There's several of them, but you are in that list that's going to get him, to be reelected. So, but you know what sort of annoys me, because many of us are sports fans, and no matter whether it's baseball, football, or basketball, is that it annoys me to see black athletes getting on their knees, and because of the Black Lives Matter. But what annoys me is that they will not stand for the for the Stars and Stripes, right? But the Stars and Stripes in the Civil War, over 300 white Union soldiers died to abolish slavery. And what were they carrying? They were carrying the Stars and Stripes. So how can anybody, especially a black athlete who's making most of them millionaires, making all this money, and they cannot stand for the it's got me a little emotional. They cannot stand for our American flag.
I'll tell you, Lou, they're getting bad advice from the people who give them advice. And again, this is where they have drank too much of that Black Lives Matter Kool-Aid. Because if I had a chance to talk to every one of those NBA players, I said, do you know what they really stand for? Those Black Lives Matter doesn't care about all black lives. And that flag, you're right. That flag gives me the opportunity to go to college, gave me the equality, to allow me to be on this show with you. So I understand the importance of that flag, how many people died in order for me to have a life like I'm having right now, which I appreciate. Right. That flag means a lot.
Yes. You just touched on something. They're not getting the right advice, these athletes, like you said.
They're not.
They're not. They'll go into a locker room, whatever it is, and if I was an athlete, that's making all this kind of money, professional athlete, and someone said, the cops are out there, they got systemic racism, and they're hunting down black people. Do you support Black Lives Matter? I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say yes.
But that's a lie. Yeah. But that's a lie.
That's correct.
No systemic discrimination in New York City, all the black cops in Chicago. That's a lie. But they believe it. They're getting bad advice.
You had said something a moment ago. When George Floyd was murdered, and I'll use the term murdered because we all know he was murdered, right? The first flash that came out, white officers killed an unarmed black man. They didn't even do their homework. One was African American and one was Asian. They didn't even do their homework. They just jumped right away. And like right now in New York City Police Department has the most diverse police department in the country. I think whites are the minority. If you break it down to Hispanic, Asian, African American, the white cops are the minority. So so people saying all white cops are killing black people.
Right. See see what you just gave? That's a fact. Black Lives Matter. They don't want the facts. You just gave information that is objective facts. And here's the problem: those two cable networks, those Democratic cable networks like CNN and MSNBC, they wanted to be white cop, black victim, 1960 all over again. Right. That's what they want, and it doesn't exist.
I know.
You're talking about. CNN and MSNBC are in bed with the Democratic Party. They're in bed with Black Lives. They don't cover these riots and this protest, this criminal misconduct. They don't want to show it.
Actually, they're not demonstrations, and they're
not.
No,
they're rioting.
They're riots. They're riots. How do you have? I saw CNN, like you mentioned it. They were just having a peaceful demonstration. Who has a peaceful demonstration at 4 a.m. in the morning? Who's out there? What? They have to, and like you mentioned, the two stations, MSNBC and CNN, these are outright riots. And my question is to the government, why are we not treating it as a riot? Because that's exactly what they are. We're treating it as a peaceful protest. which I haven't seen a peaceful protest yet.
Neither did I. And I'll tell you, that's the easy question. Because if the Democrats told the truth, they would be agreeing with President Trump. President Trump has called these riots criminal misconduct.
Yes.
And you know, I'm a lawyer. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I know the law. And for these Democrats to say, oh, having federal agents protecting federal property is wrong, they don't know what they're talking about.
They don't.
They need to go read the Constitution.
Exactly.
But the problem is, these Democratic mayors do not want to agree with the president, who have called these individuals rioters and criminals. And that's the reason why they're ignoring it.
They won't agree at any sacrifice. That's what's said.
At any sacrifice. It doesn't care if people are being killed, black children, white children being murdered. They want Trump out of the White House, and they're going to ignore the facts.
And I think that's going to backfire on them.
It is.
I think it's going to
Going to backfire.
And you're a good example of it, by the way. You know, which you know, because I'm not the only one that said this to you. You know, so I want to talk about you a moment. We have about 5 more minutes. Why did you choose civil rights as an attorney yourself? You, Leo Terrell.
I'm glad. Thank you for the question. My mom and dad. You know, my mom finished 8th grade. Didn't go to high school. My dad had a high school education, but they stressed the importance of education and helping others. And so they gave me a good background and foundation to go to school. I became a teacher, which I wanted to help people, but I wanted to do more. So I went to law school.
Right.
And then I decided that I wanted to do as much as I can to treat everyone fairly, equally. And that's what drove me to become a civil rights attorney for 30 years, and I'm proud of it. And even now, let me be clear. You could be a Republican and be a civil rights attorney, because I'm looking for a colorblind society, Lou. I just want everybody to be treated equally and fairly.
Interesting. So when you became an attorney, you actually believed that people were not being treated fairly, I would think.
I felt that there was unfairness among all people, and I felt that what I can do is to try to right those wrongs.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing for 30 years. And I feel good about the work that I do. I feel good when I go to sleep. I've never compromised my values.
Right.
All I want is equality for all.
Correct. Yeah, we know. We thank you for that. I would never think a couple of years ago or last year I would ask you to be my guest. Truthfully, you know.
I know. This is why, Lou, this is the reason why I think I can have an impact on this election to help the president, because I'm turning heads. Yes. I'm having people call me, write me, email me, tweet me, saying, hey, I can't believe you. You're wonderful. I used to can't stand you. I hated you. And now you're great. So it's all good.
Well, you know,
Lou, I want to make sure this is clear. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
That's true.
Okay? Because I believe in law and order. What Democrat doesn't believe in law and order?
You're right.
I believe in the police. I support the police. That's easy for me.
Well, my definition is that because I was a registered Democrat for over half a century, we were hijacked. That's my, and I'm not the first one to say it, you know.
No, you're right.
And to an extreme, to an Ocasio extreme, to the new green way of life, or the new green party, whatever the heck it is. So it's worse than it's ever been, Leo Terrell.
When you said that you have friends in Florida who think FDR and JFK, that party doesn't exist any longer. That's gone.
Right, that's gone, and people have to realize that, you know. So, Leo Terrell, it's just a pleasure, you know. I from your mouth or our mouth to God's ears, you know, as they say, we'll get Donald Trump elected. You know, even being in law enforcement, most of my life started in my early 20s up until I finally became a chief of police. But I've seen the changes. I've been through 2 riots. I've been to the 1964 riots in New York and the 1968 riots. Looking at this, Leo Terrell, those 2 riots were a piece of cake from what I see now.
Yes. This is crazy, Lou. I've been to 3 riots. 65 riots in L.A., the 94 riots for Rodney King, and this riot is crazy. This is insane. I agree with you 100%. This is unreal.
I'm afraid what's going to happen. I think a chain reaction, because I don't know how much the average police officer, because police officers are just, we're human beings, how much they can take. How much can you stand online and have a laser pointed in your eye without shooting somebody? I think that it's going to happen soon unless we are able to quell this, because there's going to be one police officer that's going to go off the ball and just go boom, 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 because.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen, because I think police officers, they work because they love this country, they love the city, they love this
Absolutely.
country.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
9/11, first responders, they're out there.
We forgot, people already forgot how many police officers and firemen and first responders died in 9/11, and
You better
people
believe
forget that. During that time, I was the head of the sheriff's department for Rudy Giuliani, and I seen young kids who were 20 years old, so obviously they weren't born during 9/11. They detest Rudy Giuliani, but he was America's mayor, and
He was.
we have a generation now. And by the way, folks, the majority of these riots are white kids. I have to say that out there.
That's true. Look at
That's a
Seattle
fact,
and Portland.
folks. The majority are white kids. So so now we have equal opportunity, I guess, some way, the hard way. The hard way.
That's right.
Leo Terrell, it's a pleasure to have you as my guest. And
Thank you, Lou.
I hope to be talking to you before the election.
I hope so too. Feel free to call upon me again. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you, Leo, and God bless you and yours.